Coming to you from a studio somewhere out there. It's Enough Already Radio with Fingers Malloy and Tracy L. Connors.
Good morning and welcome to another Enough Already on Southeast Michigan's home for conservative talk radio, Wham 1600 AM Ann Arbor. I'm Fingers Malloy. Tracy L. Connors is not here today. We're benching her because her middle name is Lee. So filling in for Tracy Lee Connors this morning is our good friend Ashe Schow from Real Clear Investigations, The Federalist. Where else are you at, Ashe?
New York Observer.
You're all over the place.
Yeah.
Someday you're going to run the joint.
Maybe. I like to write more than edit, but we'll see. I also like to boss people around, so.
There's that. Well, we have a lot to talk about this week, Ashe. And you, of course, are an expert on the whole campus craziness and the campus sexual assault issues that you see around the country. Can you give us an update? Is there a story that you've been following that you're interested in that we could talk about today?
Yeah, there's this case out there at the University of Southern California that just kind of illustrates everything that's wrong with this campus sexual assault Title IX process. I mean, schools are so obsessed with the narrative that women are victims that they're willing to mistreat a woman if she says she's not a victim and the school decides she is. So what happened was these two kids, Zoe Katz and Matthew Boermeester, had
Say
been
that
dating
5 times fast.
Yeah, had been dating for over a year, and on like a typical night, they went and got some McDonald's French fries and went back to her apartment to play with her dog. But before they went inside, they apparently were roughhousing or doing some horseplay out in the driveway, and apparently they were throwing French fries at each other. And from up in the window, someone a teammate, Boermeester was I think on the football team, she was on the tennis team, a teammate of one of them saw them outside and claims that he saw Boermeester pin her up against a wall by the neck, and that they were yelling and that they were fighting and the dog was running around. And, maybe they were having a disagreement or an argument, but both of them say that it was just horseplay, that they were just having fun. And then they went inside, went to her room, and there was no problem. But because this person saw what he thought he saw, goes and tells, an assistant coach, and that person has to report. And so that Monday, Zoe gets called in to the Title IX office, and they're like, okay, well, basically, here's what happened. And she's like, no, that's not what happened. And then they completely just railroad Boermeester until he's suspended. They don't talk to him until a week later. Zoe doesn't come out until 6 months after all of this to say that this didn't happen because, as she says, she was afraid of the Title IX office. So she had tweeted out that she's the person in this story and it's a false report. And she says the school came to her and was like, don't tweet anything like that again, or there may be consequences for you. So here's a school that is telling this young woman that she's got battered wife syndrome, right? That she's been in an abusive relationship and she's just afraid of him and not coming forward, and that's why she's saying that. But if the school really believed that, why would they threaten her with some sort of punishment for not going along with things? If you truly believe she's a victim who doesn't understand she's a victim, why would you be cruel to her? What the heck? So basically now the Boermeester has an attorney, Mark Hathaway out of California, and is petitioning the school to release footage that they have from this apartment complex of the two of them that does not show what the person claims he saw. And from Hathaway's petition says it's inconclusive at best, but it better describes what both Boermeister and Zoe said happened, which was horseplay.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just this crazy case that the school was so dedicated to look how seriously we take this, to the point where they like abused a woman that they claim they believed was a victim.
So let's back up for a little bit, because you bring up Title IX.
Yeah.
And I remember when Title IX first became a thing, I was only focused on the athletic field.
Right.
And we saw this Title IX come, and it was, okay, we're going to treat female athletes like male athletes. If you got a baseball team, you had to have a softball team, that kind of thing, and it had to do something with scholarships. And now when I hear about Title IX, it's stories like this. What is Title IX, if you can break that down in, because I know we could, talk about this for the whole show, but a simple definition of what Title IX is and what was intended and what it has become.
Well, Title IX is a very simple statute that was included in 1972 education amendments. It basically just says you can't get no sex discrimination. It's an anti-sex discrimination law. That's it. That's pretty much all it says. It doesn't mention athletics. It doesn't mention sexual assault. It doesn't mention anything other than you can't discriminate against the sexes. Now, originally it was, passed because of the sports, but it is gradually morphed into this beast where, it started even back in the 80s and 90s, where it essentially told schools that, you have to have these equal teams, but it soon became that equal opportunity wasn't enough, because if women weren't signing up for sports at the same rate as men, courts started claiming that there's still some sort of bias or discrimination going on. And so schools could not, no matter what they did, get as many women to sign up for sports as men. And so what they had to start doing was just cutting men's sports, because that was the only way to get into compliance.
Right.
And so obviously men suffered, right? Like there was a school, I don't remember which school, but, most of them would cut wrestling or tennis or something that wasn't a big money bringer. But some schools got so bad that they'd have to cut like baseball because they just couldn't make the numbers match. So it then from there started morphing into anything that dealt with women. So because sexual assault and violence tend to, at least some forms tend to make women be the victims, courts started applying Title IX to that and saying schools have to address these issues. And if they don't, then it's discrimination, hostile environment against women, which to me always seems odd, because even if women are the primary victims of sexual assault, men would then be the primary victims of false accusations. So schools should really be even and fair, considering you could be creating a hostile environment for men in the process of trying to not create a hostile environment for women. But nobody seems to care about that. And so now Title IX, the Obama administration clarified Title IX to basically say schools have to be way more proactive on dealing with sexual assault and domestic violence and dating violence and stalking and things like that. So, schools now broaden the definition, will basically take any report out to the fullest extent, railroad young accused men just to show that they're serious because they're afraid of lawsuits and bad publicity. If the woman goes to the press, here's a case where the woman says nothing happened and the school still went with it because it's just so obsessed and committed to this narrative. Now, last year, USC came under scrutiny because their Title IX coordinator had basically said, so the young man was doing an interview via phone with his lawyer, and the Title IX coordinator assumed they had hung up and basically called them mother effers. And was like, do they know who I am? Like, these mother effers, like, do you know who I am? And so they had this on recording. And so, USC was like, okay, well, clearly, like, there's some bias against men. Clearly they didn't learn their lesson, because here they are again.
So, first of all, I am really surprised that there is a Title IX office on college campuses, just because I assume maybe there would be someone in charge of monitoring this, but, it's been a while since I've been on a college campus and been a student. So these offices have probably grown over time, but
especially in the last 6 years. I mean, schools are paying millions. I mean, you've got Title IX coordinators that are making $150,000 a year at some schools, who only get a few reports a year. Therefore, they have to justify their existence and their huge salary. So every report becomes the O.J. Simpson case.
Well, that's what I was about to ask, is you've got these Title IX offices. I have to believe that faculty and students, especially male students, knowing how this trend has grown over the years of not giving male students due process, fishing for what they believe to be some sort of sexual assaults or sexual harassment, there almost has to be this environment of fear on college campuses, based on the actions of the Title IX office.
Well, you would think that, but you got to realize how many students don't pay attention to anything, like any national trends on college campuses. They get to college, they have the sexual assault orientation stuff, they might see papers around it, and they think, I'm a good guy, like, I would never rape a woman, and then they get accused. Like, they don't know, there's nothing on college campuses to be teaching guys that, like, this is a problem. Which, honestly, if they really want to cut down on what they claim as sexual assault, putting this kind of a fear into men, saying she's going to accuse you if you hook up with her when she's drunk, would actually do a lot more. But there was, I think, a university president who told a bunch of men that this would happen, and I think he got severely excoriated in the press, possibly fired. Like, he was like a coach or something, and it was just, how dare you say this? When it was like, that speech probably did more to stop, what the college claims as sexual assault than anything are targeted toward women.
Well, and one thing I've learned since we've become friends and I've been following your career is, there's always this mantra that women never lie when it comes to rape.
Yeah.
And yet you have written extensively, story after story, about women who have allegedly lied when it comes to being raped, where they've had consensual sex and then turned around after they've seen the guy that they had sex with maybe 2 months down the road with another girl, and then claimed that they were raped. It's a lot more common than people want to acknowledge, correct?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, rape and sexual assault really do happen on college campuses, not at the epidemic levels that the media and, the Obama administration, when it was in power, claimed. I mean, it's still very small when an actual sexual assault, but colleges have broadened the definition so much and narrowed the definition of consent so much and adopted this believe the woman, except, if she goes against your narrative, like in the USC case, but believe the woman at all costs. And I mean, they're basically, let's say that there was a problem of sexual assault on college campuses, right? Broadening the definition to make more people guilty doesn't solve the original problem. I mean, it's basically like, trying to stop the opioid epidemic by making Tylenol illegal. Right. You're not stopping anyone from taking opioids. You're just making more people criminals.
But isn't that part of it too? And is that by broadening the definition, it makes these people feel like they're doing something, and then it makes them feel better?
Oh, absolutely. We're feminists. We're helping women. This is all for women, and women are abused and they need protection, and women can't consent if they've had any alcohol, and women just need, big government protection. It's just all of this. I mean, it's just this narrative that's really infantilizing to women. And that's why, I turned against this, because when you've got these laws like in California, students, not the general population, just students, have to follow affirmative consent, which is an absolute absurd policy that cannot be followed to its logical extent without, notary republics, video cameras,
right,
lawyers in the room, signed documents, because it doesn't matter whether you follow it. If she says you didn't, you have to prove you did, and you can't really prove a negative in most instances. And the things that these kids come out with, their proof is like, oh, well, look at all these text messages she sent me before and after. Well, that doesn't matter. All that matters is what happened in that exact moment. And it's just like, there's just no way to prove that you actually followed it. And then affirmative consent is also basically like, if she's had anything to drink, it has to be this yes means yes, right? So there has to be this unambiguous agreement to every sexual encounter. But then, okay, where does it start? Does it start with the very first time he puts a hand on her shoulder? Does it start when they're dancing at a party? Does it start the moment he says hello to her? And why is she like not held to the same standard as him once she makes an accusation? Like, if she didn't follow affirmative consent, she essentially sexually assaulted him too, but she doesn't get punished. She's absolved of her own sexual assault.
I mean, that's the thing that really grinds me is, well, first of all, part of college is, for a lot of people, or college hookups are a part of that. And I thought we all wanted to be treated the same. Women want to be treated like men. Well, I don't understand this mentality that if a woman has been drinking, that she's not responsible for her decisions. But
right.
A man could be just as drunk as her, and yet he's still held responsible for what happened between the two of them, but she is not.
Right, absolutely. One of the common analogies that supporters of these policies in this culture like to cite is, well, if you get behind the wheel of a car while drunk, you're responsible for your actions. What that analogy leaves out is that the woman is also drunk behind the wheel of a car.
Right.
They both are. Why is he the only one that's responsible? It's like, oh, I can understand she feels like the victim. Well, I could feel like a victim, but that doesn't make me a victim. And what schools are doing is turning women who are not actually victims into feeling like they're victims and giving them all the trauma and bad feelings that come with that. And it's essentially like hurting their psyche. And I think that's like incredibly cruel.
Well, we only have a few minutes left in this segment, and want to segue a little bit from this to another kind of college campus issue, although this isn't really a campus issue. It's more of a broadcasting issue, and that's what ESPN did this week by announcing that college football season is right around the corner, and ESPN was going to cover a University of Virginia football game, and one of their announcers has been pulled from the broadcast because his name's Robert Lee. And ESPN, an internal memo has come out, Ashe.
Right.
And today it was posted on thehill.com saying that they didn't pull Robert Lee because they thought it would somehow trigger someone on the college campus or watching. What they were concerned with was that there would be a social media reaction towards Robert Lee and for his apparent online safety. That's the reason why they pulled him from the broadcast.
Didn't that memo also say they were worried about the memes?
Yes.
The memes are going to get you, which of course this has been quite a Streisand effect because now there are memes, people pasting his head onto that of Robert E. Lee saying like, oh yeah, the resemblance is uncanny. Like, here he is. Because as you like didn't mention, like, this guy is Asian American. Like, he's not a white supremacist. No relation to Robert E. Lee. Lee as in the Asian last name. And they're like, oh no, it's for his own safety. And it's like, so this is another instance of a college, like, because clearly they're not afraid, in this instance, of the white supremacists. They were afraid of the other side, the allegedly anti-racist people, getting violent or angry or cruel. And the colleges, time and time again, side with those people.
Right.
Like, you saw it at Berkeley, you saw it, you know, at, what was the Vermont one, at Middlebury. I mean, it's just always siding with the violent people. They're more afraid of them, but that also encourages the violence. Because if you're siding with them, if you're not punishing them, if you're not taking a stance, then you're telling them that this was the way to do it. This is how you enact change. You become violent, angry, you scream, you shut down speech, you shut down streets, you attack people, you murder cops, and you get your way. It's like telling a 2-year-old that throwing a temper tantrum is the way to go.
Well, and the thing is, too, when it comes to, you know, let's use Antifa, for example. They're out there saying, well, we're fighting Nazis and white supremacists. Well, as you and I both know, you know, we've been in the movement for several years. There aren't that many white supremacists or Nazis running around. So what they have to do is broaden the definition of a Nazi or a white supremacist to be anything from someone who doesn't want the minimum wage to be $15 an hour to someone who, you know, is like skeptical about man-made climate change. Well, now we see here where apparently they're worried that we could broaden the definition of a white supremacist to an Asian broadcaster.
Right. Exactly. Well, not only that, but he had the Boston Free Speech rally in which I believe he was an Indian guy running for Congress spoke. And they were claiming Antifa showed up and started attacking people and getting violent and claiming, you know, it was a white supremacist. It's like, no, it's a free speech rally, but it's now, if you're defending free speech, you're a white supremacist. If, you know, you're basically anywhere with a rally that's not, we need to take down Trump, you're a white supremacist.
It's maddening. Well, Ashe, where can everyone find your work? You're going to write about the story that we talked about earlier at USC. Where can people find your stories?
That will be on thefederalist.com, and I should have something on Antifa for The Observer, hopefully tomorrow or next week. I'm also working on another sexual assault article for Real Clear Investigations that should hopefully come up in another week or so.
Remember, you can always find the Enough Already podcast on SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, iTunes, and of course, you can catch it at enoughlalready.us. We have to take a break, but when we come back, Ashe, a woman tried to sneak liquor into a sporting event in a very unusual way.
Not all heroes wore capes.
Some of them wear sandwiches. So we'll talk about that and much more coming up next on Southeast Michigan's home for conservative talk radio, Wham 1600 AM Ann Arbor. This is Enough Already, and we'll be back right after this.
The best place for news, fake news, commentary, and fake commentary is EnoughAlready.us. Hey, you're on Twitter. I saw that tweet, man. So is Fingers and Tracy, too. Follow us. Follow Fingers at Fingers Malloy. Follow Tracy at Tracy L. Connors. And me, I don't have a handle on Twitter. Oh, all right. Well, follow those guys. When do I get I'm just the announcer guy. Yeah. It's Enough Already Radio with Fingers Malloy and Tracy L. Connors.
Welcome back. Remember, you can always catch Enough Already and what we're talking about on Facebook. It's facebook.com/enough already. Or is it / Ash? What are this? Is it slash, backslash? What do they use?
I think you just say slash and people know which one it is, because I don't know which one is backslash versus / They both appear to be going backwards.
Yeah, I went to high school in the 80s when they taught stuff like that.
Did they even have a backslash back then?
Yeah, they had it on the keyboard, but who used a backslash on a typewriter? Nobody.
I know. What was it? I have no idea what it was used for before the internet was invented.
You know how to type?
I mean, only for math. Like divided by.
Yeah, right. I take it you know how to type because you're a reporter.
I do. I'm glad I learned that. I didn't learn it until like high school, like 9th grade. Right before 9th grade, we were forced to, and I was trying to cheat with my little 2-finger typing skills, and then I just finally had to do it. I can't type numbers without looking, though. I just can't. I have really long fingers, but I still just can't reach far enough or feel like I can, and I keep missing them.
Somehow I avoided typing in high school, and I don't know how to type, which would really suck when I was, writing 900-word columns and having to look down at the keyboard the whole time.
Well, my dad didn't learn how to type, and so when he was in college, he would basically, I don't know, either handwrite or dictate his papers, and my mom would type them for him.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
Teamwork.
I've been looking for some sort of typing app for a Mac because I would really like to learn. But
it's got to be a game. That's how I learned. We were given, there was like a game with points and, I don't know, shooting lasers, some space game you had to type, and it just went, start with the home rows. That's it. And then adding, letter by letter or finger by finger movement, basically, to that. And so you learn pretty quickly, but I've always found that playing a game ends up helping me the most.
It's all fun and games for Ashe Schow.
It really is.
Well, we're going to talk about the liquor lady in a minute because I love her. But before we do, apparently the movement to tear down statues continues. And as Donald Trump said last week, where is it going to end? Are we going to start wanting to rip down George Washington statues? The Washington Lincoln Memorial going to be torn down. Now it looks like the next target may be Christopher Columbus, Ash.
Yeah, I mean, this is just going to spread. You already have a professor out there that was trying to say we need to take down Washington and Jefferson, and I believe there's plans to put basically a disclaimer on the Jefferson Memorial, be like, this dude owned slaves. It's just like, okay, guys. It's not going to stop unless it involves liberals, right? Like, I think the Seattle mayor wanted to take down a Lenin statue, but he really can't because it's on private property, right? But, there's several Lenin statues in the country. Robert Byrd, member of the KKK, who was also a Democrat who kept getting elected until he died, right? Like, he only died in the 2000s and he was still getting elected. Right. Because Democrat privilege, right?
FDR.
And FDR with the internment camps. I mean, where's all the, he's the left's Reagan. The way they talk about him is like the greatest president ever. The right talks about Reagan. Right. They also bring up JFK, but I mean, he didn't do much, but we won't get into that. But it's still it's just broadening, right? And I think it was last year with the Confederate flags, right? They won some victories. And so now it's just they can't get some real victories, so they're going to get these little fake victories and think that they're ending racism because statues were taken down, which I don't even care about the statues. I like the woman that put the sign on them that was it's a participation trophy, right? Because you lost. but this is a participation trophy, and the people that are, advocating for them keeping up also sometimes complain about millennials and participation trophies. And I totally agree with that. Like, maybe put them in a museum. I'm also wondering how many people, quite honestly, go up and see these statues. Like, I see statues when I'm passing by, but I'm not like, ooh, statue, let me go take my kids and read about it.
Right.
I don't think that's that big of a deal. But these people are not realizing, like, they're just now seeing statues and are like, oh, Confederacy. Like, I think a Joan of Arc statue was attacked, and it's just, Joan of Arc, guys, come on. It's just like they have no idea, like the real history behind some of these people. They're just like the one that was toppled in, what was it, at Duke or whatever, was a monument to the soldiers who fought and died. And a lot of those soldiers, like, they were conscripted. They weren't volunteers. They didn't fight because they believed in the cause. They were conscripted. Like, they're just attacking anything that's a statue at this point and feeling good about themselves when really they're complete idiots. But, the whole Columbus thing, every year, Columbus Day, people, oh my God, he was a mass murderer and he's so terrible. And it's just, guys, I think one of the best trolls to the Columbus statue was, okay, let's tear it down and put up a statue of Leif Erikson. I would prefer more Norwegian statues,
right.
more testaments to my heritage is what I want, because we lost the Norway ride at Epcot. We have nothing left.
It's amazing to me that it has the only thing that is good that is coming out of this is apparently it's getting some people to open up history books to figure out what these statues mean.
And why they hate them.
Yeah, and why they hate them. But they're broadening the definition. I saw someone on social media say, well, there's a Ulysses S. Grant statue, and he was an anti-Semite.
Right.
We got to yank that statue down. It's like, okay, so we're pretty much not going to have any statues left of anyone because there may have been a dark side to their personality. That's what we're looking at. That's the America we're going to have in 2017.
Right. Like, anybody on the left will get a pass for their dark side, right? So, like, Elizabeth Warren could get a statue even though she impersonated a Native American for a job, right? Robert Byrd's statue probably gets to stay even though he was an actual member of the KKK. These people. I'm waiting until because there was a college out in Oregon that wanted to change a sign. It was a quote from Martin Luther King. It was the quote from Martin Luther King because it wasn't inclusive enough, because he was just talking about race, but he didn't mention sexual identity or gender or anything else. So it's not inclusive enough. So I'm waiting until they're like, Martin Luther King wasn't inclusive enough and he was a womanizer, so we need to take him down,
It's a fun world. And speaking of a fun world, let's switch gears and talk about a true hero. So there's a story on foxla.com. Woman caught smuggling vodka into sporting event inside salami sandwich. A sporting fan in the UK was recently forced to go without the liquor sandwich she so thoughtfully prepared for a day at the races. On Sunday, authorities at the Southwell horse track in England reportedly caught an attendee trying to smuggle a 350 milliliter bottle of vodka into the venue by way of a large sandwich filled with salami and tomato.
I want to know if it was because that was a sandwich she really wanted to eat outside of the vodka bottle, or if she had been experimenting with various meats in order to, like, shape it around the bottle to fit it in the bread. Like, I would just love to be like, this wasn't her first attempt. She had tried ham, but it just didn't work. And she tried turkey.
Well, my question to you, Ash, is have you ever smuggled liquor into an event in a creative way?
It's never been that creative. I mean, I just put it, like, they're not that great at checking bags, really. Like, they just kind of look in there and that's it. Some places are better than others, but you go to the museums in DC and they're just kind of like, open, look at the bag, that's it. They don't have you take your sunglasses out to show that. They don't like really rifle through it. It was just like a quick glance. And I have a densely packed purse. I could have had some alcohol in there and they wouldn't have known. Maybe they wouldn't have cared. But what I also like is that their reasoning was, the reason they realized there was a problem is because the sandwich was too heavy.
Right.
Which, if I'm anybody reading this, especially that woman, it's, okay, smaller bottle next time. Several sandwiches, smaller bottles.
Right, airplane bottles.
Yeah, you got to figure out the weight of the sandwich normally, and then only add alcohol that won't make it so heavy that people would be like, wait a minute.
Well, I have 2 liquor smuggling stories I can share with you that are both pretty embarrassing.
2 that you can share? Do you have ones that you can't share?
Well, no, I, for the most part, don't smuggle liquor into events. But the 2 times that I did, they're both embarrassing. The first one, I was at a Grateful Dead concert back in the 90s, early 90s. I was a young man. And
who didn't go to the Grateful Dead in the early 90s?
Right. So I smuggled in, I wore these boots, and I smuggled in a half pint of whiskey underneath my foot in the boot.
Oh, God.
And it was a glass bottle.
God.
This is how drunk and intelligent I was back then. And so I barely put any weight on it, and I acted like I hurt myself, and so I had this huge limp.
Yeah. God.
So I got through security with it, and I was all proud of myself. Here's where the story really takes a nasty turn. I get into the building with it. I had my Pour Some Sugar on Me shorts at the time. You remember Pour Some Sugar on Me, the video by Def Leppard where the guys got ripped jeans?
Yeah.
So I had ripped shorts, and I put the bottle in my back pocket. I snuck it in, and I only got one swig out of it, and I was walking down the stairs, and the bottle fell out of my pocket and shattered on the ground. All that effort. And
then you just drop it.
And then I drop it in the arena.
That's so sad.
Right. And then a few years ago, I went to a Detroit Tigers game. And, getting any kind of drink at a baseball game or a football game is ridiculous. They want $9, $10, $11 for a beer.
Right.
So on our way to the ballpark, we stopped at a liquor store, and I wanted to get airplane bottles.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the only airplane bottles that they had at the side of the cash register there, it was Jim Beam maple whiskey.
Oh, your favorite next to honey whiskey.
Right. There's only one acceptable flavor for whiskey, and it's whiskey-flavored whiskey. Not apple whiskey, not maple whiskey, not cinnamon
Fireball.
whiskey. Fireball. My God. I think you'd be starting
Did you ever drink the bottle I gave you?
No.
Poured it down the sink?
No. I've
homeless?
got an idea for that bottle. Ashe at CPAC, which is the Conservative Political Action Conference that's held every year in suburban Washington, D.C., she gave me a fifth of Fireball as a gag. So I figured it would be fun to use that bottle every year as some sort of Rhino Award that we would give to a person at RhinoCon who's deserving of such. So we'll see how well that Fireball will age, see if we can keep giving it away year after year and whether or not somebody will open it. But
wait, so it has to be passed from person to person,
yes.
Which means it's going to have to be given to like our friends who might keep it rather
Right.
than, someone that's just on the edge of our group who might keep it and drink it.
Right. So we want to keep
But I
it.
love the idea of giving it to someone saying, you are the Fireball whiskey of the conservative movement.
So that's the game plan with that. But going back to the liquor store, they only had Jim Beam maple, and I figured, oh, what the hell? So I grabbed a sandwich bag and I stuffed 5 airplane bottles in my underwear.
In the sandwich bag?
In the sandwich bag. And successfully maneuvered my way through security. And then immediately got myself a $6 fountain Coke at the ballpark and went to the bathroom and poured all of those
Oh no.
mini bottles, those airplane bottles, into this fountain Coke, and it was the worst tasting garbage I've ever had in my life.
How sick were you?
Oh no, I didn't get sick, but it tasted like a liquid waffle.
A liquid oh.
Yeah, it was just...
And I like waffles, but I don't want to drink one.
Right, it's just maple syrup.
Oh, God. Well, there was a video going around Facebook today of a woman talking about hiding alcohol, and she's a bigger gal, and she would go to, like, the dollar store.
Are you fat-shaming?
No. Like, I feel like I wouldn't be able to do this.
Oh, okay.
But she would go to the dollar store, and I guess there's, like, these drink pouches for little kids that usually have, like, Frozen or, like, SpongeBob on them or something.
Right.
And she buys those, puts her alcohol in them, puts on Spanx, and hides them in the Spanx underneath a flowy dress. And I'm thinking that could be kind of brilliant. Or, you know, we could all just go for those wine bras where you have the wine in your bra and just drink it from there.
I went to a concert 6 or 7 years ago with a group of friends, and one of the gals, she poured Captain Morgan into a Ziploc bag and put it in her bra. It snuck it in.
Oh, God. I know, we can really fit, you know, we can fit little bottles in there. We can, you know, we got all kinds of hiding places on us.
Well, it was funny. That same event, this concert, you know, they don't pat you down at these concerts like you're, you know, they aren't TSA agents.
Right.
You know, so
yes.
A buddy of mine brought in some airplane bottles in his underwear, but he made the mistake of not putting it in a Ziploc bag. So
the bottles fell out.
Right in front of, like, dropped out of his underwear onto the ground on the foot of a police officer.
How many bottles?
Just one, but he had snuck in a few, but one just dropped out of his underwear and onto the foot of a police officer.
It would be hilarious if it was like a ton of bottles. Like that episode of How I Met Your Mother where the Skittles fell out of Marshall's pants and they just kept coming. Huh. If it was just like a ton, so it was like a bunch of bottles fall and then it stops and then a few more bottles fall and then he thinks it's over, he takes a step, more bottles fall.
Well, thankfully for my friend, the cop looked down, saw the bottle, just started laughing and said, pick it up and get out of here.
Yeah, the woman with the sandwich, they liked her ingenuity so much that instead of the policy of taking the alcohol and like throwing it away, they held it for her until she came back out. So this is like, okay, you broke the rules, but like you're so hilariously clever. We're gonna do good right by you.
Well, that's cool because you're seeing, especially at NFL games, where security won't do stuff for that, you know, like that for you, obviously, because you got 80,000 people going in. But I went to a preseason game last week in Indianapolis. The Lions were playing the Colts. And a few years ago, the NFL implemented a new rule for women that you can't take a purse into an NFL game. You can
where are we supposed to put stuff?
You can buy a clear tote bag that they can just look through, see through, or you can bring with you a clutch purse, I guess, no bigger than your hand, and that's it. So they were turning women away, and I saw more than one woman empty her purse and throw her purse away rather than walking 8-9 blocks back to their car. So the idea that, you know, an arena, or in this case, a racetrack, would be like, you know what, God bless you for trying to sneak.
Right.
a bottle of liquor in here in a sandwich. We're going to hold this booze for you. And from what I can tell, I don't know much about Glenn's vodka. That's what she was trying to sneak in. I got to believe that looking at that, that's like a $4 bottle of vodka.
Yeah, that can't. I mean, again, the lesson from this is just smaller bottles, more sandwiches.
Right.
Sandwich for everybody in your party, little liquor bottle in each, maybe two. Two of the little hotel size at most.
You can't have your sandwich gurgle.
Yeah. Probably put more than just salami and tomato. Like when she opened the sandwich, didn't look like there was a lot of salami or tomato on there.
No.
You probably want to cover it in lettuce,
My question is if she was successful sneaking that in, would that bottle of vodka, would that have gotten her drunk enough to eat that sandwich? Because like
or
you said,
on the sandwich.
It looks like there are maybe 3 pieces of salami, like you said, and a few slices of tomato on a large loaf of bread.
Right. That sandwich was like 60% bread. It was like a Subway sandwich, essentially, where it's almost just like a loaf of bread with a sprinkling of toppings.
So, to all of you out there who have snuck liquor in to a sporting event or concert in a creative way, tweet me your stories at Fingers Malloy. Let me know what you did
This is gonna be fun.
to get liquor into an event, because honestly, I want new ideas. The whole airplane bottle in a sandwich bag in my underwear needs to go. And I don't really think it's a good idea to be walking on a glass bottle into an event. It's probably a bad idea.
Yeah, I thought that story was going to take a horrific turn of you stepping on it and smashing it.
It's like, how idiotic is this? Looking back at it now. At the time, it seemed like a brilliant idea.
I just still don't understand how you were able to fit the bottle and your foot in the boot.
Well, they're very thin bottles, half pint. So I was able to fit it in there and then put my foot on top of it, and then barely I was able to tie my boot up. And then I walked with this huge limp. I was barely putting any pressure on it, and they didn't question it. They just figured, oh, you know what? He was probably drunk in the parking lot and fell down and twisted his ankle.
Did you have your current haircut back then and wear the clothes that you wear?
No, I did not.
I think you were just like probably a veteran.
Yeah, no, I had thick curly hair back then.
Did you go with friends?
Yeah, I went with friends.
Pretended that he's so injured.
The less talking, the better at that point. We just got through there. But I want to thank all the white supremacists and white nationalists out there for ruining my haircut.
Yeah, I mean, that is pretty terrible. It was like, it was a popular haircut. There's celebrities that had that same haircut, but then all of a sudden, because it's popular, white nationalists are going to have it because they're not exactly what you think of them, the way they look at least. And so they had a popular haircut, and now all of a sudden, popular haircut ruined. All the hipsters in the world have to find a new haircut.
Thanks, Nazis. And with that, we have to end our show, but I want to thank you for listening. Where can everyone find you, Ashe?
The Federalist, the New York Observer, and Real Clear Investigations.
We'll be back next week with an all new enough already on Southeast Michigan's home of news and talk. It's Wham 1600 AM, Ann Arbor.
Enough Already Radio is on Facebook. Check out the fan page, facebook.com/Enough Already Podcast.